Hey everybody, how's it going? Pancheezey here, coming at you with another video, another Dragon Ball Super episode review, recap, discussion, whatever you want to call it. We're just gonna go right off the cuff. First of all, before I start anything, I want to go ahead and mention something that Funimation and Crunchyroll announced earlier this week, that they're partnering to bring us more anime. So hopefully, real quick, that means that they're gonna go ahead and partner and do some sort of situation where they could start distributing Dragon Ball Super with subs, because that would be super great, no pun intended. But I think that there's a small stigma with Funimation and Dragon Ball because it is almost essentially their bread and butter, that they don't want to confuse audiences with the Japanese version of Dragon Ball and the American version of Dragon Ball, because they have said in the past that the American version of Dragon Ball is like its own thing, it's their own baby, and whatever they want to call it. I just feel like that might cause some complications. So hopefully, best case scenario, we see some Dragon Ball Super subs coming out of this partnership, but I wouldn't hold my breath, but it was worth noting. Anyway, so let's just go ahead and jump right in. So the episode opens up and Gowasu notices that Zamasu is missing. Now what actually is happening, Zamasu is visiting Zuno. That was his name, I forgot it last week, but he was visiting Zuno and asking him questions about Goku and the Super Dragon Balls, because as you saw, he was like I said in the previous episode, the dude is mad. He's very upset. He's upset at Goku. He's upset at how great Goku is, and he wants to find out a way to eradicate him and stuff. And then he's come to the realization that making himself immortal through the power of the Super Dragon Balls is the way to go. So he's pressing this guy for a lot of questions and stuff like that. And for something I want to notice, something I want to go ahead and point out, is that this sequence is very funny. It's just perfect comedy, like the straight man Zamasu, interrogating the funny guy who is Zuno. And something really cool is that the entirety of Dragon Ball Super has been very funny. It's had a more comedic overtone, and that's really cool because Dragon Ball, at its heart, at the beginning, when you boil it down, is a comedy. And it makes me so happy that Dragon Ball Super is really, really funny, because at the heart of Dragon Ball, the Dragon Ball franchise and Dragon Ball series and Akira Toriyama's vision is it's a comedy. It's a comedy with martial arts in it, but almost as important as the martial arts is the jokes and the humor. And the way that jokes are delivered and the way the comedic tone is set in Dragon Ball is very specific. And a lot of people try and emulate it and can't quite get it. Some people do, but a lot of people don't. And it was just really great to see when Dragon Ball Super burst back onto the scene, especially with not even Super, but with the Dragon Ball Z movies, Battle of Gods and Revival of F, that they nailed that Dragon Ball type of humor, even after years of being off air. And I just wanted to go and take this time to really talk about how great it is that Dragon Ball Super is sticking to its roots and including a lot of comedy, because they kind of strayed away from that in the later parts of Dragon Ball Z, which is understandable. It's an evolving type of thing, and they wanted to go in a new direction, and obviously it worked out, because here we are 17 years later, and here I am 17 years later talking about a Dragon Ball Super episode, and people are actually listening. Anyway, now before I move on, I do want to talk about the funniest line in the entire episode. It's after Goku is explaining to everybody that Zamasu is immortal, he unveils his plan. His own plan for achieving immortality, and his plan, God bless him, is an all-you-can-eat buffet of Zenzu beans, and that is such a funny line. Like I said, truly sticking to the formula of the type of comedy that Dragon Ball delivers, and it was great. It was so great. So it starts to get a little bit serious. Shin shows up. Kaioshin shows up because he was told by Zuno that somebody came to his palace, somebody came to his crib, and was interrogating him and pressing him for information. Now, obviously, Zuno doesn't know who he is, and by proxy, Shin doesn't know who he is. But Goku and everybody know, that's Zamasu. I know exactly what's going on. We don't have to play 20 questions here. I know exactly what's going on. It was Shin. He was over there. He was snooping around, and he was trying to get answers, of course. And basically, what Shin was doing was he was asking him about the Super Dragon Balls and everything he knew about the Super Dragon Balls and Goku, obviously. So they go ahead and they chop it up a little bit, and one of the best parts about the episode is the theory that's happening. Like I really like it when Dragon Ball gets smart. They take a break from the fighting and, you know, the high action scenes, which are great. You know, let's not get it twisted. They're absolutely phenomenal. But I really like it when things are slowed down and it becomes not necessarily a thinking man's, you know, show, but they really flex their muscles in terms of writing. And this is a really cool part of the episode. So they basically come up with the theory that at one point Zamasu had to have gathered the Super Dragon Balls and wished for Black to come into existence. And after that, he would gather the Dragon Balls again after waiting for a whole year and wish for his immortality. And with the power of him being immortal and with the power of someone as powerful as Goku by his side under his control, he went ahead and created that future Trunks is from. Now, one of the coolest things about that is even at that point, even after talking about all that stuff, Whis still says that he's unsure. There's a lot of holes in the story. There's a lot of, you know, unanswered questions, and a lot of threads aren't tied at the end of this story. And he basically says that, you know, we'll deal with it when we get to it. Pretty much, everything is unsure a little bit right now, but, you know, we'll figure it out once we come along. And another thing they were talking about in terms of all this stuff, which was really interesting, is that they brought up the time rings, which was really cool. And they reiterated another interesting fact that the time rings can only be used by, you know, a Kai. And clearly Black is not a Kai. And you actually, in the earlier episode, we saw him with a time ring on. So there's a lot of holes in this story, which I'll talk about in a little bit in terms of like my own theories of what's going on. But they basically concluded that sometime in the future, after doing all that stuff, Zamasu actually kills Gowasu, so he can become the Kai of that world, or the Kaishin of that universe. And he takes the time ring and there's no one to stop him, and blah, 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 blah. So it's really interesting. Like I said before, I really love it when they go ahead and they start, you know, thinking, and there's a lot of exposition and stuff like that. Because if there's something I like more than watching all the fights and, you know, all the new forms and transformations and all that stuff, is learning more about this world. It's learning more about how not only what is happening in the world, but how this world and how this universe works. What are the rules? What are the exceptions? What are the loopholes? I really love learning that stuff about Dragon Ball, because it is such a rich world that this stuff is actually interesting. It doesn't feel like needless, you know, exposition and, you know, just dumb, you know, dead air filling, you know, the 20-minute runtime for an anime. You're interested. You're on the edge of your seat, learning all this information about this world, just as you are on the edge of your seat watching a fight. You know, not literally, but to me, it personally is. So after they go ahead and they do all that, they actually flash back to the future, and they do some stuff with Mai and Yajirobe and stuff, and Mai is talking to the troops, and they're just all like, yo, if Goku and, you know, Vegeta and Trunks can even beat him, you know, what chance do we stand, you know? And then Mai tries to, you know, rally them back and stuff like that. And there's a little bit of back and forth there. But a cool thing I want to, you know, point out about that is that they're still flashing back to the future. They're making it a point in these episodes to go ahead and flash back to the future timeline, because it is important. All this bad stuff is happening in the future timeline, and they want to go ahead and keep that, you know, still in the brain, even while our main cast is, you know, back in the present timeline, timeline A. But they always flash back or flash forward to timeline B, and I think that's really interesting, because timeline B really still does matter, and they're really trying to drive that home. The timeline B is a big player and a big character in itself in Dragon Ball Super, and that's really dope. So after that, all that stuff, they go ahead and they travel to Universe 10 to talk to Gowasu. Gowasu, what is this guy's name? Gawa. I'm just gonna call him Gawa. So an interesting thing that's still left up in the air is Gawa assures them that Zamasu is cleansed. He admits that Zamasu, you know, had some evil tendencies, not necessarily evil, but unsure tendencies. But at the end, he assures them that he has been cleansed, he's worked through those problems, and he has been cleansed, and he's ready to be, you know, the Kaioshin that he believes he can be. Which is interesting, because at this point, we don't really know. A lot of these, you know, I feel like there's a lot of stuff building up. You don't know who's going to double cross who. You don't know what's going to happen. So this is very interesting, because at this point, we don't really know if Gawa is being truly 100%, and he truly believes that Zamasu has been cleansed, or if he's just simply playing a bigger part in this. Because like I said earlier, Whis is still unsure about that theory that he brought up He's not really sure what's going on. So all we know for certain is that Zamasu is going to use Dragon Balls at one point to have an immortal body, and Goku Black is going to show up at one point. That's all we really know, and how we get there is still very uncertain. So we don't really know the type of cards, you know, Gowasu is holding. Now this is all 100% speculation, of course. For all I know, he could just be truly just a dude who thinks that his pupil is, you know, a good dude, just like a complete bewildered old man who just thinks that his, you know, his star pupil can do no wrong. So the episode closes out with Goku and, you know, Beerus and Whis talking to Gawa about, you know, Zamasu and what they think is going to happen, and they're, you know, reassuring that he's okay, and Gawa is like, yeah, I'm cool, I'm doing okay, you know. And then the episode finally closes out with Zamasu showing up, and then, you know, it's a true sentiment that it's about to get real. And from the looks of the preview, it looks like the next episode is going to be all about, you know, them preventing Zamasu from trying to kill Gawa, because they think this is the point in time where he kills Gawa. So it was a pretty tame episode. Obviously, when comparing it to last week's episode, it's a night and day in terms of action. There's zero to no action, if I remember correctly, in this episode. The only action I remember seeing is in the preview for the recap of the last episode. So, you know, it was a little tame, but that doesn't mean it was bad. Like I said, I really love hearing about all this exposition, all this backstory, and all this world and universe building in the Dragon Ball universe. So it wasn't that bad. But a really interesting thing that I want to take away from this episode is that if they go ahead and they stretch this out, they stretch all these events happening out right now, they could really be getting back to their roots of original Dragon Ball. What we could potentially see is a race to the Super Dragon Balls. You know, who gets there first? Who gets to wish their wish first? Do Goku and his friends get to the Super Dragon Balls first? Or does Zamasu get to the Super Dragon Balls first? And that, you know, at the end of the day, at the heart of Dragon Ball, you know, the story is about finding Dragon Balls. And, you know, as the series went on, obviously, and as their powers grew and, you know, all these techniques became more and more powerful, you know, it became easy to find the Dragon Balls on Earth. And then when Dragon Ball Z started, they went and they traveled, you know, through space to go to another planet, and it became difficult to find the Dragon Balls on another planet. And then now it just seems like the natural progression to go ahead and say that, yo, now there are these Dragon Balls that are spread across not only one universe but two, and in order to find them, it'll be nuts. But you know, but what we saw from the earlier episodes, it was pretty easy to find them. But now the catch is that an evil entity, Zamasu, is trying to find them at the same time. And now it's a really cool race to see who can find the Dragon Balls first, if that's the direction they're going in. Again, they could not be going there. I could just totally be, you know, just yelling into a void, speaking into a void. But it would be really cool to see that happen again. And another thing I want to bring out before I go ahead and end the episode is that time travel is starting to play a much bigger role in the Dragon Ball universe. And I know a lot of properties try and, you know, mess with time travel, and it gets really convoluted and stuff like that. But if your universe has a really nice set of rules, really solid, airtight set of rules in terms of time travel, you can make it work. And you know, it hasn't always been explained in the core Dragon Ball canon continuity, the rules of time travel. But if they go ahead and they talk about it in Super, you know, it could work, because we've gotten like sprinkles of time travel rules across all their properties. We're talking about Dragon Ball, the anime, Dragon Ball, the manga, you know, games, you know, Daizenshu's, all that stuff, movies. Like, it's, you know, it's a lot to take in. But what we know for sure is that there are two timelines right now in terms of Universe 6. There's Timeline A, which is a timeline we've always seen, and there's Timeline B, which is Trunks' timeline that he came from. But the real kicker is that if you think back to a couple episodes ago, where you saw, you know, Gawa taking Zamasu to like that room, and he shows him the time rings. He's talking about the other time rings that are there, and he says that the only time that more rings appear in this box is when someone goes back and messes with the timeline and a new timeline exists. So we're looking at potentially all these other timelines that they can explore, because there are multiple rings. There are more than 2 rings in that box. Now what that means, I don't know. That could possibly work into the Goku Black and Zamasu story. A quick theory I want to go ahead and talk about is a lot of people, including myself, are willing to at least think about the idea that Zamasu somehow fused or did something to attain Goku's body, and that is who Goku Black is. If Goku Black is not Zamasu himself, somehow Goku and Zamasu did something to create Goku Black. And what I'm thinking is that this is going to involve time travel. That's why there are all these rings in the box. Somehow Goku Black is Zamasu controlling Goku's body, something like that. Not necessarily that. And what I'm very loosely, let's go ahead and put that out there real quick. What I'm very loosely thinking is Goku Black and Zamasu are actually the same person, but at different times. That's why Zamasu explains them as kindred spirits. That's why Goku Black was so concerned when Zamasu was being attacked and he looked like he was being bested by Trunks. I somehow think that Goku Black is a version of Zamasu from the future. And I think that the reason he was so concerned as to, Zamasu getting beat up or hurt, because he knows that if something happens to that version of Zamasu, he will not exist. Maybe he is from the same timeline, not a separate split timeline. That would be the only thing I could really think that would support this theory. Like I said, it's a loose theory. Who really knows? As always, if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead and throw them in the comment section below. If you want to go ahead and talk more about that theory that I had, let me know. I'd love to, chop it up with everybody. Like I said, the episode was really calm, not a lot of action in it, but I dug it. I really enjoyed it. And if anything, it just gets me more and more excited for not only what next week's episode holds, but what the next arc is. Where are we going to be a year from now in Dragon Ball Super? It's just very exciting. What a time to be alive. What a time to be a Dragon Ball fan. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.